Be careful when you're having fun, folks. Here are 19 reasons to watch Gerald's Game. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is the place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. And in this video, we're continuing my chronological walk through the movies and adaptations of Stephen King's works. And we're looking at the 2017 Mike Flanagan directed movie of Gerald's Game, which is based on the 1992 novel of the same name and is a movie that many people said could never be made, and yet it was, and it's pretty damn good. So I'm going to be giving you 19 reasons to watch this movie in this video, coming right up, just after a couple of very quick plugs. So 3 things to plug for you. You can become a member of this channel, you can become a constant viewer, get access to extra content, early access to regular content, fun emojis, loads of other stuff like that. Link is in the description. You can also find in the description a link to my range of Stephen King themed band shirts where I mash up well-known band logos with Stephen King titles. If that sounds like something you would like, then check out the link. And also, you can get my multi-award winning collection of short stories, Once More Around the Sun, which came out in 2024. Link again in the description. And if you can't do any of those things or don't want to, that's fine. Maybe consider subscribing because that really helps too, okay? Okay, on to Gerald's Game then, which Mike Flanagan directed for Netflix in 2017, stars Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood. It's a movie that doesn't get talked about anywhere near as much as it should because it's really, really good. And it's an adaptation of a book that really shouldn't work on screen, like many people said it wouldn't, and yet Mike Flanagan made it happen. So in this video, I'm going to give you 19 reasons to watch it. Now, if you're worried about spoilers, don't be. As always, anything that might spoil a first-time watch, I will cluster behind a spoiler alert so you can skip at that point and just go straight to the outro using the timestamp in the description. Or, of course, you can just watch the whole thing. Now, if you want to watch this movie, well, it's on Netflix because it's a Netflix movie. So, there you go. Don't forget to let me know what you think of Gerald's Game. What's your favourite moment of this? Is there any moment of this film that makes you maybe wince a little bit? Yeah, if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Cool. And if you don't, well, go and watch it and then you'll find out. Okay, let's strap in. Here are 19 reasons to watch Gerald's Game. So the headline reason to watch this one then, well, I've mentioned it a couple of times already, but this shouldn't have been possible as a film. Loads of people said that looking at the book, the 1992 novel, this just wouldn't work as a movie because so much of it is inside our main character Jessie's head, and she is conversing with versions of herself in her head. But Mike Flanagan was able to make this happen quite brilliantly by allowing us to see those conversations. So Jessie is having conversations with another version of herself, but also with a version of her dead husband, Gerald. So she's having these conversations while also trying to work out a way of getting out of this terrible situation that she's in, i.e. cuffed to the bed with no one to help. And she's also trying to process childhood trauma, which we see through a couple of flashbacks. And the whole piece is almost like this play, but it's so brilliantly and beautifully done. It is an exceptional piece of filmmaking, and it's really tense and scary and kind of gross at points as well. Just hugely impressive. So Stephen King called this film hypnotic, horrifying, and terrific when he saw a rough cut, and I would definitely agree with this. And the small cast really helps it. So like I mentioned in the last reason, it does feel at times like you're watching a play. And the small cast, the small setting, that intimacy is really important because this movie is centered around an intimate act. It gives it even more power. And like I say, it's just a great film. So if you're wondering what the hook is for this, well, it's very similar to the book if you've read that. Gerald and his wife Jessie are our main characters, and they go off to their cabin in the woods for a weekend away to try and get a bit of spice back into their relationship. And that spice involves basically playing sex games that Gerald is into, which is cuffing Jessie to the bed and having his way with her. So they get started, but Jessie realizes she's not into it very quickly and asks Gerald to stop. They have an argument. He has a heart attack out of nowhere, pops off the bed and dies. And Jessie realizes, even though she hasn't been screwed, she is screwed because she is cuffed to the bed, keys are out of reach, phone is out of reach and has no charge, and there is no one around. Gerald has made it so that the cleaners are not coming in for a long time, and she starts to wonder how in the heck she's going to survive.
Gerald!
So something I think might surprise some people watching this for the first time is quite how gory a film it is, aside from the one infamous scene. Like, there's blood fairly early on. Considering Gerald dies of a heart attack, you don't expect that to give us lots of blood, but we get blood there. The arrival, or the re-arrival of Prince the dog, certainly isn't sugar-coated. And considering the bulk of the film is somebody who is strapped to a bed and is living inside her own head, it is surprisingly bloody. It might even be bloodier than the 2024 remake of Salem's Lot, which you'll remember is a vampire movie. So this is actually Mike Flanagan's first adaptation of a Stephen King property, which feels wild to say because those two have just become synonymous with each other over the last few years. But when you look at it on paper, he hasn't actually done that many King adaptations yet. But this was his first one, and he showed right from the start that he's able to be very faithful to the book, perhaps a little too faithful when it comes to the ending of this, which I'll get to later, but also make a film that works equally for both constant readers and complete King newbies. It's impressive. So let's talk about the cast, which is small but perfectly formed. Bruce Greenwood as Gerald. He is great. Like, right from the start of the film, you can see that he doesn't really care about Jessie. He just wants to have his way with her. And the smarminess, the smugness in which he's stocked the fridge with really expensive food and he's just making a big show of, like, here is the cliched view for a man, a straight man, of what treating your woman right looks like. But also the whole time he's practically pushing her into the bedroom because actually he doesn't care about the champagne or the $200 steak or anything else he's put up there. He just wants to strap her to the bed and fuck her. That's it. And the way he quickly slips into this rape fantasy when he's in control of Jessie is horrible. And the way he talks to her is just nasty, nasty, nasty. And also, in a stark change from Gerald in the book, he is buff here, which is a good thing because he spends most of the movie in just his boxers. I mean, I say good thing. I have nothing against people who aren't buff, but you can understand why, from Bruce Greenwood's point of view, he wanted to make sure he was in a physical shape that he was happy with. But yeah, there we go. Sexy Gerald, I guess. So we also get a regular of King adaptations, Henry Thomas, in this as Jessie's dad, who we see in the Eclipse flashbacks. And my God, he is great. I have never hated Henry Thomas on screen so much as I do in this movie. He is just as bad as Gerald, and the way he looks at his own daughter like she is just some piece of meat is just toe curling. And the way he treats her and gaslights her after what he did, just sickening. A wonderful performance. So Carol Strucken as the Moonlight Man is hella scary. Hella scary. I mean, can you imagine seeing that out the corner of your bedroom? But it's Carla Gugino as Jessie here who steals the show with an incredible performance that shows just a massive amount of range. Like, the way she deals with basically carrying the entire weight of this movie on her own shoulders is just outstanding. She's just incredible from start to finish. Truly brilliant performance. And also, not to be completely, like, vain and shallow about it, but like Bruce Greenwood, she is hot. I mean, we have got super hot Jessie and Gerald here. It's difficult not to enjoy. So lastly, before spoilers, this is worth watching just to see what is possible with a director who is willing to use their imagination and be a bit creative. Like, this film shouldn't have worked, and yet it absolutely does. It's also worth watching for one scene in particular, which we will cover after the spoiler alert. And boy is that scene something. Right, we have reached the spoiler alert. At this point onwards, going to be showing a bunch of things that I really enjoyed from this movie, which might ruin a first-time watch for you. So if you haven't watched it yet and you don't want that ruined, then maybe bail here, click the timestamp to the outro, and I'll see you at the end. Otherwise, stick around, because I've got a few more reasons for you to watch Gerald's Game, including that scene coming right up. Right, when it comes to faithfulness to the book, this is Mike Flanagan directing. It is very faithful, which is perhaps a mark against it when we get to the ending, because King's ending of the book was somewhat unsatisfactory, and we basically get that in its entirety here. But if you're looking for a faithful adaptation, and I know a lot of constant readers want that, this movie does that. There's not much that doesn't make it from page to screen. To that end, we even get a fairly long bit where Jessie is talking about seeing a woman looking down at her from the top of the well, which we know as constant readers is Dolores Claiborne. Now, she doesn't mention Dolores by name, of course, and that could be off-putting for non-King readers, but actually I think it's done in a way that just comes across as slightly surreal, supernatural, unsettling, and weird. That it works. Okay, on to some of my favourite moments. To start with, just all of the scenes that are lit by the eclipse are just so weird and unsettling, and I love them. The Prince the dog coming in to chow down on Gerald is just gross and powerful.
Get the fuck away! Get the fuck away from him!
Now, the moment where we're coming out of one of Jessie's flashbacks, and she looks up, and for a moment, like a split second, the Moonlight Man is licking her toes. That genuinely made me say no out loud while I was watching it. Just, oh my god, nightmare fuel. But when we're talking about oh my god, nightmare fuel, the winner, of course, has to be the degloving scene. As for my favourite line, I think this is actually more of a line delivery, because it's kind of Gerald monologue where he is talking about how the situation is going to pan out for Jessie. And it's the way he delivers it so calmly, so softly, so gently, and yet so horrifyingly as well. Just perfectly pitched.
Wince and nod and tell each other the woman on the bed died hard, but they won't know the half of it. They won't know.
Okay then, on to connections to other King works and Stephen King Easter eggs. So obviously Mike Flanagan has subsequently directed Dr. Sleep, and we've got The Life of Chuck coming up, and he's planning a Carrie miniseries and loads of other stuff as well. Elsewhere in the cast, Bruce Greenwood was also in Dr. Sleep. Carol Strachan was also in Dr. Sleep. Henry Thomas was in Desperation, an episode of Nightmares and Dreamscapes, and Dr. Sleep. And Kate Siegel is going to be in The Life of Chuck. As for King Easter eggs, okay, keep up with me here. So, Gerald refers to the dog as Cujo at one point. Gerald also randomly says all things serve the beam, which feels like a very odd shoehorning in of a Dark Tower reference, but whatever.
All things serve the beam.
Gerald also says that Jessie's midnight visitor has a bag of bones. We get Jessie's dad talking about how they have to take their medicine, which is very Jack Torrance from The Shining. And of course, there's the Dolores Claiborne mention. There's also a nice little Mike Flanagan Easter egg, because you may have noticed the book that's on top of the shelf above Jessie that she throws at the dog. That book is Midnight Mass, which was the name of Mike Flanagan's Netflix series. Did I miss anything? Did you spot anything else? Let me know in the comments if you did. So lastly, this is an underappreciated, under the radar, untalked about Stephen King movie that deserves so much better than just being left to languish on Netflix. It deserves to be seen by constant readers everywhere. And right up until the point where Jessie passes out after her car crash, it is like 5-star no notes. The final 10 minutes do bring it down a notch, but I understand wanting to give Jessie some sort of redemption and some hopeful ending. Like, I get it, it's the same as the book. But I just think it's a more powerful piece of art if you cut it after she passes out after the car crash. But taking the movie as a whole, banger. Okay, there we go, 19 Reasons to Watch Gerald's Game. What do you think of this one? Do let me know. And what do you think of that scene, if you've seen it? Yeah, something, isn't it? How does that compare for you with that scene in Misery? I mean, they're both horrible, right? But which one would you least like to watch again? Let me know in the comments. Other things you can do, you can find links in the description to my range of King band shirts, to my own collection of short stories, and a link to become a member of this channel if you like. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so already so you don't miss any in the future, and come back soon, because next up we're talking about another Netflix special.